Hello, my name is Wendy Peart, and I am the Curator of Education and Community Outreach at Dunlop Art Gallery, at a unique unit of the Regina Public Library. Welcome to this short conversation series where we connect you with creators in our community and beyond. I acknowledge that I am currently situated on Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation, where Regina, Saskatchewan is located. I would also like to thank our key funders, Canada Council for the Arts, Sask Arts, Sask Lotteries, Sask Culture, and the Government of Canada. Now let me introduce you to our artist today, Sylvia Zeman. Sylvia works in the areas of sculpture, painting, installation, video, and curation. Her studio production consists of miniature installations that incorporate sound and video. She is fascinated with carnivals, end-of-the-world scenarios, survivalist tendencies, and the animals who live amongst us. She holds a diploma in painting from Alberta University of the Arts, a BFA from NSCAD, and an MFA from the University of Regina, where she teaches painting, drawing, and sculpture. Welcome, Sylvia. Let's start off by you telling me briefly about your art practice.
Well, I do work in a lot of different mediums. I work in drawing, installation, sculpture, and painting. I tend to move from one practice to another when I get stuck or when I get bored with the medium, but everything really begins with the drawing. And that's why I've kind of chosen to focus on the drawing. Apart from the other works that I do. The themes that I work with are, I am fascinated with troubled times, and we live in them right now. So my previous work has dealt with survivalist tendencies, possible future worlds where we're living a better way, and that includes sort of dystopic, utopic worlds. And I deal with a lot of that through painting and sculpture in those areas.
Particularly why I asked you, or one of the reasons why I asked you on here today, because I know these are the times that we are living in are very relevant to the work that you do. So things that you're pretty much maybe quite often considering. So it's very interesting, and I'm really curious to see how your response to this real time, this real experience is influencing your work or changing it or changing some of your perspectives on the themes that you're working with today. Now that we're, life is a bit different and we're all living at home primarily and spending most of our time at home, how has this time affected you? How is it different than your daily life? And what has this meant for you?
Well, I've been very fortunate, I think, to be an artist and to have a studio. So confinement in the home, in my studio, means that I'm in the studio more. What's really different is that I've had a very busy life with teaching and showing and doing workshops and, taking care of family members. And all of a sudden everything came to a full stop and we had to stay inside because of the pandemic. But it's kind of ironic that my work deals with these catastrophes anyway, and now we're in one, really. So I have to say it's been an inspiration for me to work through this on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour almost process of working on drawings while this is all unfolding. So I have basically the radio on a lot. I love listening to CBC, and when everything was shut down, of course, we're listening. And I just kept drawing. And so I've been drawing out my feelings and thoughts and events throughout this COVID time. So it's different. It's good for the studio in a sense. But, at this point now, it's 3 months in, it's getting a bit, I really like to be out in the world again with people.
This is a time now where I'd love to bring up some of your work that you're currently working on or have recently finished. So that is something I'm going to do right now. I'm going to share my screen and allow that to happen. So this is one of your ink drawings, and can you tell us how large it is?
Oh, it's about 16 by 20, I would say, a little bit smaller.
Okay, so not small, I would say, for an ink drawing. Tell us a little bit about this. It seems to be a lot. I'm going to say this just about the work that we're going to be showing here. They seem to be quite diagrammatic, in the sense kind of exploring world views, or they provide sort of a composite of a way of understanding, a way of knowing something. So maybe you can just tell us about that.
My drawings are based on anatomical diagrams. And then I use that as a template to fill in what's going on during the day, what my thoughts are. And in this particular drawing, it's based on sort of the top view of the head, sort of the inside of the mind area. It's actually one of the first drawings. I think I was working on this on the weekend that we were told we couldn't go back to work and we had to stay in, and there was a major pandemic. So I think the first thing I wrote in was lose yourself in order to find yourself and confront your demons, because I realized when you're in isolation, there's not a lot to bounce off of with the external world, except for what you hear about it through the news. This piece is about that beginning of that isolation. I was also thinking about how we use images to communicate certain feelings. I like to use imagery and text together. It's almost like a form of poetry. It's a poetic drawing. Okay, this one's called Hungry Ghosts. It was recently purchased by the Sask Arts, which have been a great supporter in all the work that I do. And this is the underlying drawing of it is the intestines and right up to the neck. I was thinking about how when we hear about ideas or problems in the world or conflicting things that we don't understand, we need to digest them for a bit. So even right now, we've got so many issues in terms of racism and police brutality, and we've got the disease and care for the vulnerable and so on. And there's so much information that, you know, even just to take one of those issues, you need to chew on it a bit and think about it and in order to understand it. And if we don't do that, I think that we run into problems. So in this drawing I have, at the time I was drawing this, the Colten Boushie murder had happened. There were oil spills on reserves in the province. You know, a lot of things that were bothering me. So for me, this was a real digestion. So it's a symbolic digestion as well. You know, what can we do about these things? How do we view them? And the importance of them.
What I find really interesting myself when I look at this, at the very bottom, you have the words, I wonder, which I find to be an interesting, I see that as the end point. And it's not that you're coming up with any hard and fast solutions, but just by bringing up this idea of wondering, and it opens things up. It opens it up for discussion, for thought. It keeps it open-ended, which I find really interesting about this work.
Yes, and this piece was actually done just before COVID hit. And we were having, again, you know, like I say, I listen to the news all the time and I'm trying to figure these things out. And we were having oil spills, and then there was the pipeline debate and Indigenous people stopping the CP rails from moving. And I was thinking, and so this image is the sort of the shape of the head, and all the things that are involved in these incidences, they affect everyone. So the trains were stopping, so the food stops getting transported. People were protesting and saying, shut Canada down. And then COVID came and shut everything down, right? Within this drawing, there's a lot of, I was thinking a lot about that. How do we process this again? You know, how do we do something? How can we, with so many things happening all at once? Mm-hmm. So these drawings are not necessarily solutions to the problems. It's mainly a sorting out and trying to come up with iconic imagery that will explain or bring into one coherent symbol or sign an idea.
Really interesting, Sylvia. I find it a very compelling way to sort of not only, like, you're personally digesting this, right? And you're personally, for your own well-being, trying to understand and grapple with all these things in the world that are not positive. But you're also sharing that with everyone else. I think there's a lot to relate to with this work. And yeah, so I really appreciate you sharing, giving us a glimpse into this kind of way of digesting it. I really appreciate the time that we've spent today, but if you have one last thing that you want to add, and maybe it's the big takeaway that you're going to go forth with from this time, what have you learned, Sylvia?
In seeing the kind of artwork that is being done today, and through my own work too, I think art is so important now, even more so than ever, in order to bring these symbols into a digestive, again, way for us to understand the world and its complexity. One image can make us make sense of something, whereas trying to figure out the politics and the dialogue and the different sides and all the things that are coming up, it's almost impossible. There's too much information. So I think art right now is really very, very important.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that artists have the time and the energy and the resources to be able to do that for us. It'll be really interesting to see moving forward what people have made in response to this time. So thank you, Sylvia, on behalf of Dunlop Art Gallery, Regina Public Library. Thank you for being here with us today. And again, just thanks for your generosity of spirit and sharing with us.
Thank you for your interest. Thanks, Wendy.